So I'll be honest, despite having a channel with like 95% of its videos dedicated to the Arrowverse, I haven't actually been keeping up with it lately for the most part. Like, I know everything that's happening, but I haven't watched the shows in a while, and the only shows that I'm up to date on are Superman and Lois, Stargirl, and The Flash. When it comes to Supergirl, I haven't watched since the 100th episode, which is like 30 episodes ago, and I don't really have any intention on watching any of those episodes ever, but now that the show's ending, I thought, what the hell, I mean, Arrow had a great finale, a final season, and a great final episode, so I thought maybe Supergirl could be good as well. I never expected it to be as good as Arrow, because Arrow is just a generally much better show than Supergirl, with its worst seasons being on the level of Supergirl's general quality. But I don't know, I expected something more than what we got here, as this didn't feel like a series finale at all. It felt more like a season finale, with another season just on the way. I mean, yeah, there is a big finale fight with almost all of the heroes that appeared on the show, with the exception of, like, just Miss Martian and Saturn Girl. They kind of brought in everybody, which is kind of cool, I guess. And they also fought against several villains from across the show, but I mean, other than that, this had nothing to do with the ending of a show. It just didn't feel like it at all. One side character that I literally forget about every single time he's not on screen was killed off, and Supergirl reveals her identity to the world, which is something that on Arrow was the main thing that happened in Season 6's finale. Somebody got killed off, but there it was much more important and a much more emotional death. And Oliver's identity was revealed to the world, which had much bigger consequences. And I make this comparison because not only is it both the ending of Season 6 for these shows, but also on Arrow and on Supergirl, this didn't feel like an ending to the show in the slightest. And they definitely had to continue on Arrow for at least one more season, but they also got 2 more. On Supergirl, they had the series finale that didn't end the show in the slightest. And I mean, it's weird. Supergirl is still active as a hero. The Super Friends are all still there, heroing around in National City, just like every other season. The only difference is that now there's some sort of development to Supergirl's career, which hasn't happened since Season 1. I mean, there's been nothing aside from a costume change in Season 5. Finally, there's some sort of development. Supergirl's identity is revealed to the world, which could be interesting. But no, the show just ends. There's no storyline going forward here. And I'm not complaining that the show's over, because, I mean, I'm not a fan of the show. But it's just a really weird way to end the show, where it's not an ending. It's just a season finale. And it wasn't even, like, a good season finale. It was the worst one that Supergirl's had, which is saying a lot. I mean, it's saying a lot. For instance, the fight scenes, absolute garbage. So difficult to watch. The camera just doesn't stop shaking. Like, stop shaking for 1 second, please. It made me nauseous. I'm not even kidding. It was so hard to watch. Like, the fight scenes itself looked awful. The effects and the choreography, terrible. And then you throw in the shaking camera here, which was completely overused. Just so much shaking. And it makes me physically ill. It made The Flash Season 7 look like Arrow Season 5. It was that bad. It was just so awful. I mean, the big fight scene with all these heroes fighting against all those villains, one of the worst scenes I've ever seen in superhero television history, just television history in general, because it made me physically ill. It made me nauseous. It was that bad. The whole Mrs. Mxyzptlk Lex Luthor storyline was really weird. It completely misused Lex Luthor. He was great in Season 4. They actually pulled off a very good version of the character, which is completely surprising. He was a calculating, behind-the-scenes manipulator who manipulated the whole plot of the season successfully, and it ended up making sense. The actor was pretty great, the lines for the character were good, and he, on top of that, also had a power suit that looked cool and that could face off against Kryptonians in a physical fight. He ended up being probably my favorite live-action version of the character, but here, he's in love with a magical imp and has mama issues or something like that, and he doesn't come off as smart or calculating, and he never really wears his power suit ever. Instead, he just has an arm cannon, and sometimes literally just fights hand-to-hand. Oh yeah, and he has magical powers, which I haven't watched the rest of the season, so I don't know how he got those powers. I'm assuming it's from those totems, which were named after the Paragons. I don't know. I haven't been keeping up with the season at all. I just watched the finale. But I mean, Lex Luthor having magical powers isn't really right for the character at all. Then there's Mrs. Mxyzptlk, which is what I'm going to be calling her, because I think her name is Nixie Spitalik. But I'm just gonna call her Mrs. Mxyzptlk because I mean that's what she is. She's a female version of Mr. Mxyzptlk, and she's a very, very forgettable villain. Despite being a fifth-dimensional imp who are just basically all-powerful and can do anything, she's not really that powerful. I don't know if there's a story reason for that. Again, I haven't watched all these episodes or this season. But the fact that this all-powerful imp has actual hand-to-hand combat scenes where she fights just with karate or whatever, or martial arts, it's ridiculous. It's so stupid. I mean, you would never consider Mr. Mxyzptlk having that. I mean, he couldn't. It's completely the antithesis to how the character works and operates. They're magical imps, and they could change the face of reality. Why would they have a fight using martial arts? It makes no sense. Now, I've always known that this show is bad, and there are episodes that I've had trouble getting through, but I don't know if the show got worse or I've gotten less tolerant of the cringe, which might be the case because I've been having a hard time keeping up with a lot of the Arrowverse shows because they're mostly pretty cringy. But I mean, these episodes were, I think, on another level. I mean, they were just impossible to get through. In fact, I didn't really watch these episodes. I mostly skimmed through it because I couldn't get through a single minute of any of this episode or these episodes. They were just impossible to get through. So even after like 50 seconds, I just skimmed through it just a bit. Still though, I still caught a lot of very, very cringy moments. And I want to go over a couple of them here because, I mean, it's another level of cringe that I didn't think even this show could have gone to. So there was the big battle with all the heroes against Luthor and Mrs. Mxyzptlk, where Lex Luthor used his magical powers, because he has that, to summon some random villains from across the show. And when I say random, I mean 3 villains from Crisis on Earth X, including the 3rd villainous appearance of Red Tornado in the Arrowverse, okay, and Parasite, and a couple other monsters in the background that I didn't recognize at all. From this scene, we get a very brief fight between Parasite and Alex Danvers. Let's watch it.
Oh, no touching without consent.
Jesus Christ, what the fuck was that? I swear to God, my head withdrew into my body like a turtle just out of sheer cringe. Who signed off on that? Who were the dozens of people who wrote the script, who approved this script, who directed the actress, and who shot this, who edited this, and then the network who actually aired it? How did it get through like hundreds of people to make it to the air? And who thought this was good? Who thought that they could put this on air and get a positive reaction out of anybody? I could just end the video here. It's the cringiest thing. It's like beyond even this show levels of cringe. I never thought that I would feel so much cringe just physically. It physically pained me. Again, the second time that this episode made me physically ill, and it doesn't end there. There's also a scene like right after this, also with Alex Danvers, where her mom shows up just out of nowhere, had no relevance to the episode up until now, and didn't show up at all, and just shows up with a shotgun to shoot Parasite or the other villains or whatever. And then there's this reference here. Let's watch this clip now.
Mom?
You'd think in another life I was a Kryptonian.
Only in the movies.
Now, if you don't get the reference, the actress who plays Alex's mom was Supergirl in the 1984 movie, the critically acclaimed, I might add, Supergirl movie from the 80s, and god damn it, this was the most forced and cringiest reference I've ever heard. I mean, only in the movies. I mean, come on. She literally just appeared in this episode for that reference. I know she had like a conversation with Alex later in the episode, but I skipped over it. I didn't watch that because, like, who cares? Really, who cares? This level of cringe is just, it's unrecognizable. I've never felt this before. It's ridiculous. And these two clips are like 2 minutes apart from each other. Like, my head was just beginning to come out of its shell after the first cringe scene, and then it went right back in like a second later from the second one. It's insane. I recoiled in cringe twice in the span of 2 minutes or a few minutes, however long it was. And it doesn't end there either. In fact, it doesn't even start there. At the end of episode 19, there's this random civilian who must have appeared in previous episodes. I have no idea who this is, but he gives this big speech because they're losing hope. And god damn it, it's so terrible. It's awful. It's like the most generic, you gotta believe in yourself, have hope speech. It's the most generic thing ever, and like, why is he slouched over the entire time? Why is he talking like that? It's just such a weird inclusion. I mean, most of the episode, the entire thing is weird, and everything that's included is a weird inclusion. But why was this here? And then we get another speech in the next episode from Supergirl, the classic Supergirl speech in the season finale that they do in every season, or they at least did it in season 1, and now they're doing it yet again 5 seasons later. They didn't think that was a little bit derivative of that first season, which also was awful in the first place. Now I could go on and on about everything that was cringy in this finale, but I don't think anybody really needs to hear anymore. I don't think anybody's surprised by this. Supergirl is a bad show. It's always been a bad show. It's always been more focused on sending a message to its impressionable audience than telling a good story. You compare that to the first season of Superman and Lois, which just wants to tell a good Superman story. Supergirl was never interested in telling a good Supergirl story. It never tried to, and despite starting on a bigger network than the rest of the Arrowverse and getting much larger ratings in its first season, even then, it was like the worst looking Arrowverse show ever. The visual effects and the action and everything involving just the visuals of the show they've always been awful despite having a much bigger audience in the first season. And obviously it only got worse from there. Now, there are things that I did enjoy throughout the show, like Martian Manhunter scenes in Season 1, Superman scenes in the first 2 episodes of Season 2, the Legion and Reign in Season 3. Those were high points for the show, along with Lex Luthor in the 3 episodes he appeared in Season 4. It's mostly been a guilty pleasure for me, but there are parts where I genuinely enjoyed it. Which is why, while I'm not at all sad that the show is over, because I only really enjoyed a handful of episodes, and I don't think I'll ever get around to seeing the episodes I haven't seen, I'm still a little bit disappointing in this ending because it wasn't even enjoyable. It wasn't even like this guilty pleasure that I enjoyed watching but know is bad. It was genuinely awful. It was genuinely one of the worst things I've ever seen. I have nothing positive to say about it at all. And it wasn't even a definitive ending to the show. There's no reason why, narratively speaking, they couldn't make another season. Compare that with Arrow, which ended with the main character becoming a god, restoring the multiverse, which is already much higher stakes and much more significant, and then dying before having a big emotional funeral featuring the entire cast of Arrow, plus other heroes from across the Arrowverse. The entire cast went their separate ways, and while it never came to be, it also set up a sequel show. Meanwhile, Supergirl ends with just Kara revealing her identity, which again is something that Arrow did in its 6th season as well, and then had another 2 seasons. That's it. It's completely unsatisfying, and it's such low stakes, which is crazy because Arrow's always been a more grounded show, so you would think Supergirl would have higher stakes because they could deal with like the end of the world. But no, Arrow's the one who dealt with the end of the world and the death of the main character, while Supergirl just didn't really deal with anything. It was just a regular season finale that kind of set up another season that we're never going to see, and I don't really ever want to see. It's a bit of a mixed feeling, because again, I don't care that this show's over. I just wanted a bit more of a satisfying ending, and something that I could have at least said that I enjoyed, and it was bad, but I enjoyed it, but no, I didn't. It was just so difficult to watch, and one of the worst episodes I've ever seen in the Arrowverse, which most people agree with, because I think it's like the 3rd lowest rated episode ever on Supergirl, which is sad when talking about the series finale. So that's it for this video. Make sure to leave a like. Don't dislike the video because you can't, because YouTube removed the dislike button, which is and subscribe to this channel, please. I want to get to 100,000 subscribers. I'm so close. I'm a little bit over halfway there, and it's been quite a while, but I really want that silver play button. So subscribe, get me to 100,000, and that's it. Thanks for watching. Bye.